Hey, it's Shelby here, and we're going to be spending 12 to 15 minutes of your life learning about anglerfish and listening to smooth jazz to keep this from being as awkward as it could be. There will be a quiz at the end, so I hope you remember a few things. When thinking of anglerfish, this is probably what comes to mind for most of you guys, since this was a pretty popular movie during our childhoods, and its popularity has re-emerged with the recent release of Finding Dory. This surprisingly is a pretty accurate representation of a female anglerfish. This is an actual picture of a female angler. Kind of weird looking, I know. They aren't the prettiest fish in the sea, but that's why they stay in the deep sea, where their mates can't judge them based on their looks. Anyways, let's talk about the female. The biggest thing that distinguishes the female from the male and the female angler from other fish is the lure-like structure that extends from their skull, which can be seen circled in purple. There's a vast array of species of anglers, and they all look a little different. These are just a few examples of different anglers, and if you notice, they still possess some sort of lure-like structure in some shape or form. This structure contains luminous bacterial symbionts, meaning that the anglerfish is the host and the bacteria typically lives on the surface of the lure structure, and any other light organ that they might possess. This relationship can be classified as extracellular symbiosis, which typically does not result in gene loss because the bacterial symbionts are not restricted to the anglerfish host. Since the bacteria lives on the surface of the light organs, they are typically able to move between these organs and the environment. With previous studies stating that the symbionts are unculturable, this suggests that the bacteria depends on the anglerfish host in some way. But of course, more studies need to be conducted to determine the extent of this relationship between the bacteria and the anglerfish. Since anglerfish live so deep in the ocean, there's not very much information about them, which also means that there's no information about the development of this structure. So now we're going to watch the first ever video footage of this species alive and filmed at the depth of 600 meters.
Deep-sea anglerfish are strange and elusive creatures that are very rarely observed in their natural habitat. Fewer than half a dozen have ever been captured on film or video by deep-diving research vehicles. This little angler, about 9 centimeters long, is named Melanocetus. It is also known as the black sea devil, and it lives in the deep, dark waters of the Monterey Canyon. We believe that this is the first video footage ever made of this species, alive and at depth. Anglers have a remarkable apparatus on their heads, a fishing pole with a luminous lure at the tip, which they use to attract their prey. In the darkness of deep water, they flash the light to attract prey and draw them near the angler's mouth. When a fish or squid swims up, it is quickly inhaled by the angler's huge mouth and trapped by its long, sharp teeth. Given the shape of this angler's body, it's pretty clearly not designed for speed. Instead, these are ambush predators, lurking in the darkness to grab an unwary meal. Another thing we can tell from the shape of the body is that this is a female. In this species, the males are much smaller, and they lack the fishing pole and lure. Males are ill-equipped for feeding, and their sole responsibility appears to be to find a female and mate with her as soon as possible. When we came upon this specimen at a depth of about 600 meters, we noted that she has a broken tooth. You can see it on the left side of her lower jaw. We have no idea whether it will be replaced by another after it falls off. So far as we know, there is no tooth fairy in the deep ocean. You can see that the eyes of this angler are quite small. In their dark habitat, anglerfish rely more on feeling the movements of other animals in the water around them than on vision. The tiny pale dots you see along the sides of the fish and on its head are organs very sensitive to the slightest movements, and they function very effectively in the dark. The deep sea is filled with surprises and wonderful creatures. Humans have only just begun to explore this vast realm, and we can only imagine what discoveries are yet to be made.
I found a study that analyzed previously hypothesized cladograms and new data collected by taxon sampling, DNA extraction, PCR, and sequencing along with phylogenetic analysis. These cladograms are the original hypothesized cladograms that were analyzed in this study. These cladograms and the information that led the individuals to create these cladograms were analyzed and used to create the cladogram in this study. The cladogram on the left was derived from the information gathered in this study. The bottom portion marked by the darker lines includes the order Laphiiformes, which includes species of anglerfish. The cladogram on the right is just a larger picture of the order of Laphiiformes. There is a large number of species of anglerfish, which means that this cladogram could change with the discovery of new data. They have found that there is a sister group relationship between the suborder Caproidae based on the 12 sub n, 3 sub r, rt sub n, and the 123 sub n, rt sub n datasets, or with both Caproidae and Tetraodontiforms based on the 12 sub n, rt sub n datasets. These datasets were used in the phylogenetic analysis of their data. The study concluded that the suborder Caproidae is more closely related to anglerfish, and these two fish are the two species included in the cladogram. They are commonly known as boarfish. Unfortunately, there is not a lot of information on boarfish besides the fact that they live very deep in the ocean, much like anglerfish. One derived trait that sets anglerfish apart from their sister group is their bioluminescent lure structure. A hypothesis for the evolution of the bioluminescent lure would be that the anglerfish live in the deep sea, where it is very dark, and the lure provides a small amount of light that would attract smaller fish and other creatures, kind of like how a lamp attracts bugs at night. The prey would get close to the lure, and the anglerfish would be able to snap its jaw and catch the prey in their mouth. This adaptation is very useful since it brings the prey to the predator, since food is very limited in the depths of the ocean. Another reason that there is a need for the bioluminescent lure is that it can attract the males to the females. There are a vast number of different organisms that have bioluminescent light organs. They are not only limited to vertebrates or sea-dwelling organisms, but there are also invertebrates as well as terrestrial organisms that exhibit this derived trait, which would suggest that this trait has derived independently. The bobtail squid is one example of an organism that uses bioluminescence. This type of squid uses their symbiotic relationship in a different way than the anglerfish. The bobtail squid has a bacteria that lives on the underside of the squid that produces light. This light is very similar to the moonlight or the starlight. It allows the squid to swim through the water without producing a shadow during the night. The bacteria produces enough light to make it seem as if the squid isn't there. This is done to escape predation. This is a pinecone fish and an example of a vertebrate that uses bioluminescence. This fish is very interesting looking, and it is thought to be the primitive predecessor of perch. These fish have two light organs under their lower jaw that produce light through a symbiotic relationship between the fish and the bacteria. This is very similar to the anglerfish. Now we've talked a lot about the female anglerfish. You're probably thinking, what about the male? Well, they're very, very different from the female anglerfish. For one thing, they're much smaller in size, and they lack the lure-like structure. Male anglerfish also lack the large teeth that females have. They only feed on plankton initially, and then they rely on the female for their nutrients. You're probably wondering how that works, and it's pretty weird how it works. It starts with the fact that males have large specialized scent organs that detect the female anglers and help them find the females in the depths. The bioluminescent lure also aids in the hunt for mating. Once the male finds a female, he attaches to her by biting through her skin and secreting an enzyme. This enzyme dissolves the skin of both the female and the male and fuses the two together. At this point, the male and the female have now joined blood supplies, and the male is a parasite to the female. She will now provide the nutrients for the male, and the male provides a supply of sperm whenever the female is ready to mate. This is called male parasitism. This is not what happens with every species of anglerfish, but a lot of them take part in this strange mating ritual. Now we're going to watch a video of a female anglerfish with male parasites.
This is a deep-sea anglerfish mating pair. These animals have rarely been observed in their natural habitat, hundreds to thousands of meters below the ocean's surface. You're watching one of the few known videos, and this one shows a sexually parasitic pair for the first time. That means during mating, the tiny male is permanently attached to the female. He gets nutrients and she gets sperm. These specialized fish rarely survive the journey to the surface. Before now, most deep-sea anglerfish studies use dead animals pulled up in nets and sometimes preserved in museums. In this case, the research team used a special submersible designed to capture images of creatures that live at these great depths. Like most other members of its order, this anglerfish is known for the bioluminescent, lure-like appendage that drifts in front of its mouth to attract prey. But this is the first time that what might be bioluminescence on the fish's filaments has been documented. The swaying swarm of thin projections around the angler may act like a 3D array of cat whiskers, sensing danger and prey in the environment. There is little to eat at this depth, and it is very cold, leaving anglerfish with few calories to spare. So it makes sense that, as this video shows, the anglerfish female seems to use very little energy, slowly drifting and rolling through the water. But we don't know much about their metabolism, the bacteria that supply their glow, or how the female's body doesn't reject the male's. The special ship that took this video has been in operation since 2013, and there aren't many like it in the world. So, chances are, many anglerfish mysteries will stay that way for some time to come.
Before I end this presentation, we're going to watch one of those Nat Geo Wild World's weirdest videos on the anglerfish.
It lives in total darkness at depths of up to a mile below sea level, and what has been referred to as the midnight zone. Down here, don't be afraid of the dark. Be afraid of the light. The light is a lure wielded by our champion of the weird, the deep-sea anglerfish. The lure is created by bioluminescent bacteria that live inside the angler. It drifts through the water, flashing its beacon, waiting for something to take the bait. This squid thinks it's found an easy meal. A fatal mistake. The squid was smaller than the angler, but had it been bigger, the anglerfish is prepared. This far down, meals are few and far between, so to make the most of every opportunity, this anglerfish has evolved a distending jaw and expandable stomach. Want more weird? We have it. This is a black devil angler. A female, to be precise. She is after this fish. It's not a meal, it's her mate. This is the male black devil angler. A specialized scent organ locks in on the ladies. If it's difficult to find food this deep, it's even more difficult to find a girlfriend. Deep-sea anglerfish solve the problem by having extremely clingy relationships and never letting go. Ever. The male bites into her belly. His body releases an enzyme. That dissolves the skin under the bite and fuses his mouth to her body. Then, the two become one. He will draw sustenance from her for the rest of his life. In return, the female has a ready supply of sperm for whenever she's ready to mate. Thank you, deep-sea anglerfish, for bringing so much weirdness into our lives.